7-2. I thank you. Yes, Minority Leader. You want to speak to the petition?
Yes.
Yes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Yes, actually I've listened keenly to the petition and it raises very, very grave issues. First and foremost, let me thank the Kesha. Kesha is an established association of head teachers of secondary schools and they've been very instrumental in management of our schools across the country. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I am saying the petition is raising very grave issues is that the government must have done some costing for it to have arrived at the figures you've just referred to, way back from 2018 or 2008. Mr. Speaker, it is true that even as we speak, even though now schools are closed, a number of schools are struggling to make ends meet. Whereas on one hand, head teachers are not allowed to charge extra fees. On the other hand, the government has consistently failed to remit the capitation money. So how then do you expect these heads to run their schools? That's the question that really needs to be answered. How does the government expect secondary schools to run without money if the heads cannot charge extra fees? And yet, the money that's supposed to come from the national treasury is not coming. So how then do you want our secondary schools to be run? This is an issue, Mr. Speaker, that calls for serious introspection, not only on the part of the government, but indeed on the part of the whole citizenry. Mr. Speaker, this House has got a duty to address this matter with finality. This House must address this matter with finality. Leave alone even the issue of the arrears. The arrears are, the figures you're talking about are monumental. In tens of billions of shillings. I can see the chairman of the Education Committee, my friend is looking at me, Corneli Serem. Is it? Meli. Meli, you know, is my neighbor up there in Kisumu. You know, unless you want us to continue burying our heads in the sand, we must either say that the government is unable to support secondary education by way of capitation, or allow the head teachers to charge extra fees with attendant ramifications. And therefore, in a nutshell, I want to say this petition is timely and it needs to be processed expeditiously. In fact, I would suggest that in addition to the Committee on Education held by my friend Meli, we also need perhaps to incorporate some more people so that we have this issue dealt with in a holistic manner. Thank you.
KJ.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. And this is an important petition, Mr. Speaker, because it goes beyond the disbursements and the delays in disbursements. Mr. Speaker, we as a country will not be able to finance the support of students whose numbers we do not know, Mr. Speaker. And that's why the drive towards digital identification and the digital registration of students becomes extremely important, Mr. Speaker. Previously, the government has been disbursing monies to schools without even ascertaining the exact number of students in any given institution. It has been guesswork, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if the government would be able to identify an individual at birth, such a government is able to plan for the life of the individual, not only through schools, but even as they come into the working environment and as they go into becoming an economic contributor in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, as the Petitions Committee looks at this, as the Education Committee looks at this, they've also got to be able to come up with a system that establishes the exact number of learners in our institutions. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Oyula Joseph. Is that Joseph Oyula? Yes. Give him the mic.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I was not prepared for this petition.
Oh, you are on the screen. Kemei. Beatrice Kemei, are you on the screen for this? Those of you who are not interested in this petition, can you delog yourselves off the screen? Interventions. Posing David. Where is Posing?
I'm here.
Yes.
Of course, you know, Mr. Speaker, I was prepared to lay a paper, but of course I can say something. Speaker, this is a very important petition, as members said, but I'm asking myself, does that require a petition, Speaker? Doesn't require a petition. It's common knowledge. Where is the minister in charge of education in this country?
Posing, any Kenyan has the right to petition this house,
what
whether
I'm
it's
saying,
common
Speaker.
knowledge or not.
I thank you, Speaker. But that is an indictment, Speaker, to the Minister of Education. That's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't require a Kenyan to be able to go, think, write a petition, send to you, Speaker, and you read on the floor of the House. That is an indictment to the Minister for Education. And therefore, Speaker, my only contribution to this petition is it should go to the Leader of Majority, Honorable Speaker, not the Petition Committee, not the Committee on Education, so that the spokesman of government in the House can pick up this issue and implement more or quickly, more than a petition, Speaker. I would wish that you direct that this petition should go to the Leader of Majority so that for quick intervention, Honorable Speaker. I thank you.
Didymus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support these very important and grave issues that are being raised by the petitioner. However, Honorable Speaker, I feel like the committee should urgently and expeditiously, the Committee on Education, they should engage Treasury in liaison with the relevant committee, so that as the petition committee will be proceeding with this petition, they can also try to ensure that the ministry fixes this matter, very important, so that our children cannot be disenfranchised and so that they can continue to enjoy the free secondary education. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Kitonga Murugara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, this is a timely petition and it does raise several issues. The first issue is on issuance of birth certificates to our pupils. We know very well this is a problem countrywide and that we need to continue decentralizing into every sub-county so that birth certificates are issued. From there, we move to DEMOS, which is the registration of students so that they are able to get capitation. Again, there should be no issues with this. From there, we move to the government issuing the actual money to the schools in accordance with the number of students in the DEMOS. Again, here, there should be no hindrance. If we do this, then our education system will be seamless, it will flow well, and we will not be having such petitions which now tell us to go back to the year 2018, 2019, so that we can pay arrears. I urge the Public Petition Committee to move this speed and resolve this issue. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support
Leader,
this petition.
This teacher is raising several things. The most important one, apart from the arrears, is that children cannot be captured by NEMIS without birth certificates. And that may not be resolved by the Petitions Committee. So you have to give direction on that.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and is indeed one of the issues I had noted to ask the Public Petitions Committee to also involve in their deliberations on this issue, to involve the Office of the Registrar of Persons. Two, Honorable Speaker, it is quite clear at every turn of the year, government should know how many students are actually in classrooms from class 1, grade 1, all the way to Form 4. Therefore, there should be no reason, Honorable Speaker, why even at the turn of the year in January, someone should claim what Mr. Indimuli says here, that in January, because the data that was used was from November, December, there are more students admitted into secondary schools. Because those children are never admitted from the blues. It is children who sat KCPE in the previous year, and government knows how many students actually sat for KCPE, for instance, in this financial year, and therefore they should be able to plan for them. Honorable Speaker, also to note that Parliament also has a role to play. The Chairman of Education, I'm sure, Honorable Speaker, you give him a chance, will tell you that there is always a financing gap of about 2 shillings in secondary school education fund. And therefore that shows the deficits that come in, and the Committee for Budget and Appropriation must therefore ensure that we appropriate adequate resources towards not just day secondary schools, but even for our boarding schools. Two, Honorable Speaker, there are also cases of fraud, and members will tell you across all our constituencies, there are teachers who also escalate the actual number of students they have in NEMIS vis-a-vis the students who are in classrooms, causing a great disservice to others who are not captured in NEMIS. But the ministry should leverage on ICT. And I like what the member for Dagoretti South has said. There is no reason today, in this day and age, when we can be able to capture all these students right from grade 1 to Form 4 and leverage on ICT to ensure that every student has funds attached to that student, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I heard the Leader of Minority in his contribution propose that maybe government should say they are unable to pay and allow head teachers to increase fees. Honorable Speaker, we must never allow, under these strenuous economic times, any head teacher anywhere to increase fees. The government of Kenya should be able to pay school fees for all our children. And therefore, I want to advise my good friend, the Honorable Pio and I, because I have seen them claim that school fees is going up, the cost of fuel is going up. You cannot also be saying here that we allow school fees to go up. School fees must not go up at all, Honorable Speaker. We have also bursaries. And it's the same person yesterday who raised the issue of bursaries. We must also ensure, Honorable Speaker, the multiplicity of bursary funds in this country is an issue, whether we like it or not. At one point or the other, we must be able to look into. MPs, or rather NGCDF, has a bursary kitty. The Ministry of Education has a bursary kitty. The county governments, against the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, now have a bursary kitty for secondary schools. This multiplicity of these bursaries, Honorable Speaker, if we do not confront it today and in the near future, will become a big problem to us. Probably it is that money that is being taken to bursaries that we should be redirecting to capitation of secondary schools. If all our secondary school public schools, all our students in public schools in secondary were catered for fully, including those who are boarders in schools, we may never need to give bursaries to anybody. And that is part of the data, Honorable Speaker. I'm saying the ministry should also, and I hope the Public Petitions Committee will also be able to interrogate the ministry to ascertain what is the actual cost of maintaining a child in a day secondary school, what is the actual cost to maintain a child in a boarding school, whether it's an extra county, a county school, a national school, and how possible is it if we are to pull all the resources we have in the county governments, in NGCDF, in the Ministry of Education for bursaries to secondary school capitation, then we may never need to give people this handout business of bursaries. Honorable Speaker, I beg to support, and I hope the Public Petitions Committee will be able to look into all these issues. And I do hope the chair of the Education Committee could also speak to the issues of the actual budgetary deficits that exist, that occasion some of these deficits in financing. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Robert Mbui, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this petition. Mr. Speaker, the issue of capitation has been first, it is always delayed, and secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is also always never enough. Mr. Speaker, on the matter that has been raised here by the petitioners of the government knowing the number of children, let us be honest to ourselves, Mr. Speaker. The government knows the number of children in every school, because every classroom teacher must every single day, morning and afternoon, sign a class register confirming the number of children in that school. So it's not rocket science. Every principal knows the number of children. Mr. Speaker, the problem we face is when we are told that the children must have birth certificates to be put in the NEMI system. And Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, it is also the government that is in control of the delivery and the production of birth certificates. So parents are unable unless they go and queue for long hours to get birth certificates. So a lot of children don't have birth certificates and they end up not being able to be put in the system. But Mr. Speaker, even when you look at the amount of money that is given, you know, there was a time we were supporting education exams. Mr. Speaker, if you get to know the figure that is given for exams, if you get to know the amount of money that is given for sports, it is so little, Mr. Speaker, that it cannot be able to run the education system. So we need to look at how do we increase the capitation to make it enough for our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Last on this, Melly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this petition. Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of the House that the funding gap that exists is a result of the decision of this House. That the 630 billion shillings, the primary school education is not, secondary school education is allocated around 60 billion. Of that, 22, and in that particular funding, it's supposed to have around 80-something billion shillings. So every year we have a funding gap of 22 billion. And I want to ask this House that in the next funding cycle, let us make sure that that amount of money is actually put in the budget. Two, Honorable Speaker, I also want to point out that in the various fundings that we have in this country, and I want to say the majority leader has just put it very clear. The other day we discussed with some experts that there is a lot of money outside there with the local banks, in the NGCDF, county governments, and other institutions amounting to over 30 billion shillings. If well streamed out, it can actually do a good job in terms of funding education. Two, we have this issue of birth certificate. And I just want to address this more specifically to the Ministry of Interior. It has become a serious problem in schools to have a birth certificate. The Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Interior needs to work together so that we digitize and to get to know how many students, and every student needs to have a number so that we avoid fraud. And as Honorable KJ has just said, we really need to make sure that we have a very clear digital system in schools so that we can fund every child. We have a register in schools. So the petitions committee, and I think the education committee will have an input into this so that we solve this issue, and this one should not give parents and principals an excuse to raise fees. This is hard economic times, and actually we need to lessen the burden that we are giving to the parents of this country, that let the government pay, let the principals not raise fees at this particular time, Honorable Speaker. We need to streamline and make sure that the monies that we have reach schools on time. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, we have this issue of the budget cycle. The budget cycle and the school calendar starts at different times. This is something that we need to align. We need to sit down so that we align the budget cycle and the school calendar so that disbursement are actually in tandem with what is going on. I thank you and I support.
Thank you. The petition is committed to the Public Petitions Committee. And should they find any requirement to consult with the Committee on Interior and Education,